Hey friends, it's Gloria. Welcome back to another video. In 2021, I had so much fun participating in Books and Lala's Buzzwordathon that I thought I would do it again for 2022. If you don't know, Buzzwordathon is a year-long challenge where every single month there is a prompt to complete. Usually it has to do with the book's title. So in today's video, I'm going to be going through all of the prompts and what books I have on my TBR. As much as I can, I'm pulling from books off my shelves, but several of these are from the library as well. So for January, the word is who, what, where, when, why, or how. So any of those words can be in the title. A lot of nonfiction have most of those words, but I'm actually pulling When the Apricots Bloom by Gina Wilkinson off my shelves, and I hope to read this for January. This is kind of a summary looking title, but I really want to have this book read. I know this is a contemporary fiction. It is set in Baghdad in 2004, and it follows a young woman who works for the Australian embassy, and I think there's some kind of like mystery involved, and people are potentially maybe after her for doing something. Not entirely sure, but I'm very intrigued by the setting of Baghdad, but I've not heard many people talk about this book, so if you've read it, please let me know, and let me know what you thought. For February, the prompt is me, you, mine, yours, he, she, hers, his, their, we, or ours, or any combination of those. That's a lot, and I have so many books that could work for that. So here are just a few that maybe I'll pick up in February. The first is the nonfiction, and that is The Things We Carried by Tim O'Brien. This is a book that chronicles PTSD after the Vietnam War. I don't know much about it, but it's one of those like classic nonfiction must-reads. Another possibility for the month of February is We Were the Lucky Ones by Georgia Hunter. This is a very popular historical fiction that I've been meaning to read for a while. Another possibility is The Last Thing He Told Me. This just won the Goodreads Choice Awards in the thriller mystery category, and it's in Reese's book club, so this is receiving a lot of hype in 2021. I want to see what it's all about, so maybe I'll pick it up in February. Another thriller that's been on my shelves for a while is The Wife Between Us by Greer, Hendricks, and Pekkanen. This is also a hype thriller. I think it's been around for a while though. I haven't read from this author before, and I think I've heard mixed things, but I really just need to read this book and either decide to keep it or give it away. It's been on my shelf for too long. And finally for February, another possibility is If You Want to Make God Laugh by Bianca Marais. This is also on my 12 fiction list, so I really do want to get this book read in 2022. But I read Hum If You Don't Know the Words by this author and really enjoyed it. This one is set also in South Africa following the civil war there and the AIDS epidemic. The setting alone intrigues me. Moving on to March, the prompt is to read a book with a setting in the title, so that could be a city, a country, a state, province, an attraction, or a location. The only books from my shelf that really work with that actually both have Paris in the title. The first one is The Paris Wife by Paula McLain. I've heard mixed things about this book, so I don't know if I want to read it, but I'm still debating. And then the other one is The Paris Architect by Charles Belfoure. This is set in 1942 Paris, and it is about an architect who is commissioned to create a secret hiding place for a famous and wealthy Jew. But for all my historical fiction lovers out there, let me know if this is a good one. I haven't heard many people talk about this. For April, the prompt is big and little. It could also be small or large, tiny, huge, any kind of variation on size words. And I could only find one book on my TBR that worked with any of those. So if you have any other recommendations that work, let me know. But the one that I am interested to pick up is The True Memoirs of Little Kay by Adrienne Sharp. I have only heard of this book from a Book Olive, and I go to her mostly for nonfiction recommendations. However, in one of her Q&A videos, she was answering the question of what is her favorite fiction book, and she said that it used to be City of Thieves by David Benioff, which is one of my favorite books, so my ears perked up. But she said this one just barely beats it out. This follows a woman who is exiled in Paris, and she sits down to write her memoirs, her life story of her wonderful life in Russia as a prima ballerina living in aristocratic society. But then of course everything changed during the Russian Revolution. This book sounds exactly like my kind of book, and I'm very eager to pick it up, and especially coming such highly praised. For May, the prompt is for the book to have a direction in the title. That could be north, south, east, west, up, down, left, right. And my top two books that work for this prompt are also in my 12 classics that I hope to get to in 2022. And that could be East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Really want to get to that book. I heard it's amazing. I also really want to get to North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. My other two possibilities though that could work for this prompt, I physically own. The first one is another classic, but it didn't quite make it onto my classics list, and that is Under the Greenwood Tree by Thomas Hardy. Not heard anyone say anything about this classic, but I've heard of this author, and he has written quite a few other ones that people like to talk about. I did scan this book, and the language intimidates me. It's quite like old Englishy, so I don't know how I'd fare with this one, but maybe. And then the other book that could work for this prompt is The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Richard Flanagan. Haven't heard many people talk about this one either, but it sounds so interesting. The main perspective is from a man who was in a Japanese prisoner of war camp, and then he's reliving his past in present-day Australia. Next up for June, the prompt is to read a book with all in the title, and this is where I need your help. I have no books on my shelves with all in the title and only 2 on my TBR. The first one is The Signature of All Things by Elizabeth Gilbert. I don't know much about this book except that it is a historical fiction and it jumps from multiple locations around the world. And then the other one is The Delusion, We All Have Our Demons by Laura Gallier. This is a Christian fiction that I've heard a few people mention and enjoy. It's a bit out of my comfort zone, so I don't know. Let me know if you have any books with all in the title that you would recommend. For July, the prompt is to read a book that has book, library, read, page, paper, any kind of book related words in the title. The one towards the top of my list to read for that month is The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek by Michele Richardson. This one also is a historical fiction about the Packhorse Library. I've heard incredible things about it. Don't know any details, but I know it's great and I am very eager to pick it up. The other possibility is a book that I mentioned in my 2022 anticipated releases video, and that is The Woman in the Library by Sulari Gentill. This sounds like a very intriguing murder mystery set in the Boston Library. For August, the prompt is to read a book with an item or object in the title. Now that could be any book with book in the title. I have quite a few of those, like The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek as well, but I have a few other ones that are item object related. The first one is a middle grade, and that is The Length of a String by Elissa, Brent, Weissman. This comes also very highly praised by Amanda from the Curly Reader, a very interesting middle grade about a black girl who is raised Jewish but always wonders where she came from, and so this young girl finds a diary and jumps back into reading about her great-grandmother's story, something along those lines, but it sounds really good. Another one that could work for this month's prompt is The Big Green Tent by Ludmila Ulutskaya. So this one obviously caught my eye because of the cover and title. This is also a sweeping saga about school friends who meet in the 1950s in Soviet Russia. That's all I really need to know. It is a bit of a chunker, but I hope to get to this one at some point. And then the last possibility for an object or item in the title is The Gown by Jennifer Robson. I want to read this because I do enjoy some fictionalized versions of the royal family. I love the show The Crown. I enjoyed reading a bit about Prince Philip's perspective from The Rose Code by Kate Quinn, and so this is a fiction on how the wedding dress of Queen Elizabeth was made. Moving on to September, the prompt is to read a book with light or dark in the title. I have 3 books that could all work. The first one is a historical fiction called Out of Darkness Shining Light by Bettina Gapa. This is set in 19th century Africa. It has multiple perspectives and covers a span of years, dealing with a missionary and the people who were loyal to him that walked across Africa carrying all of his things for him. I haven't heard many people mention this book, but it sounds like a very interesting historical fiction, and I always love reading historical fiction that's set in a different perspective and timeline than I'm usually reading. So that's a possibility. The other one that could work for this month is The Light in Hidden Places by Sharon Cameron. This is a young adult historical fiction that was first hyped because of Reese's Book Club. This is set in 1943 Poland about a young girl working at a grocery store, and there's a bit of romance and a love triangle going on, and then of course the Germans invade Poland and everything falls apart. And then my last possibility for this prompt is The Light of Days, The Untold Story of Women Resistance Fighters in Hitler's Ghettos by Judy Battalion. This got some hype and love because it was in the Goodreads Choice Awards for the nonfiction category, I believe, and the couple of people that I saw that read it said it was really good. So even if it's not that month, I'm still hoping to pick up this nonfiction at some point. Up next for October, the prompt is to read a book with an animal or creature in the title. I have a few possibilities for this one. The first one is a nonfiction, and that is Hurricane Lizards and Plastic Squid by Thor Hansen. I've been meaning to read Buzz by Thor Hansen. It's a book I own about bees, but this is his newest release that came out in 2021. I just love the title. The tagline is The Fraught and Fascinating Biology of Climate Change. So an interesting take to look at animals that have been affected by climate change. The other possibility that I am so eager to pick up is Penguin the Magpie, The Odd Little Bird Who Saved a Family by Cameron Bloom and Bradley Trevor Grieve. I heard that this is the most heartwarming and like feel-good little story about a family and this bird. And then another possibility for this prompt could be The Lions of Fifth Avenue by Fiona Davis. It is a historical fiction that I really want to get to. I have a few other books of hers on my shelves that I want to read first, but this one's still on the list and could work for this prompt. For November, the prompt is for the title to have ing in it. And because November is nonfiction November, I'll throw in 2 nonfictions in there. The first being Dead Wake, The Last Crossing of the Lusitania by Erik Larson, an author that I really want to read in 2022. One that I've only heard amazing things about, and that is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And I believe November is Indigenous Peoples Month, so that could totally work for November as well. And then another nonfiction that could work for this prompt is Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. I've heard amazing things about aging and death, and maybe a bit about the medical industry and what's involved during the end of our lives. And then finally for December, the prompt is to read a book with a number in the title. I have 2 books that were on my 12 fiction books I hope to get to in 2022. The first one is The Eighth Life. This is a chunky historical fiction set during Soviet Russia, spans many years, follows a family, epic saga. I'm very excited to pick it up. The other one is a thriller called 3 Hours by Rosamund Lupton. This is a very popular UK thriller that a lot of UK booktubers are hyping up, and I really want to read, but it has not been published in the US yet, and it's unavailable anywhere, I think except for Amazon, which I think I'm just gonna bite the bullet and order it because I really want to read it. It is a fast-paced thriller set during a school shooting. It just sounds really interesting, fascinating, and like a really gripping thriller. And finally, the last book that could work for this December prompt is The Five, The Untold Lives of the Woman Killed by Jack the Ripper by Haley Rubenhold. This is a really hyped nonfiction that a lot of people have read and love and talk about, and I really want to read it. I was hoping to read it in 2021, but I didn't get to it, so I hope to read it in 2022. Sounds really interesting, and I don't really know anything about Jack the Ripper or the women he killed or anything about that. Those are my possibilities for Buzzwordathon. I'm very excited for this challenge. Please let me know if you're participating. Also, stay tuned for another video for another year-long challenge, the Read Your Bookshelf Challenge by Chantel Reads All Day. Thank you so much for watching, for spending time with me, and I will see you guys in another video soon. Bye!